Hello, my name's Darryn Fedrick and I'm a vaulting coach. I'd like to thank EQ for involving me in their question and answer, and also the members for asking their questions. The questions I've been asked today is, can lunging improve my balance and carriage of my horse? And the answer is simple, yes. There's a couple of factors that need to be taken into consideration first. First of all, is the horse fit enough to do the work that you require of him? A good example of that is if you go to the gym and want to do 100 push-ups, say that's your goal. Yet when you start out, you sort of all motivated and that, and then you sort of can only do about 50, then you have to stop and have a break and do another 50. This is okay. There's also might be that you get there and you can only do 4 or 5, and then you after that the form starts to get bad and you sort of try and stop after about 10, and then you have a little break and you do 4 or 5 again, and then so this is the same in consideration that you've got to look at for the horse. Is he able and fit enough and strong enough to do the work that you want him to do? Second factor is the horse trained on the lunge? Now this means that the horse is able then to walk, trot and canter at your command, come into the circle and go out on the circle, and not just a matter of the horse going around as he feels free or just because he's sort of afraid of the lunge or the whip and that stuff. So it's important that you sort of make sure that the horse is schooled. Another factor is also when we're looking up carriage and balance and this stuff, a lot of times when we get on the internet, we see these lovely big warm bloods. And now this is wonderful, but our average horse doesn't necessarily look like this. And you have to take into consideration that the way that they move and carry themselves is different depending on what their capabilities are. For example, our vaulting horses are Percheron crosses, and they cannot move like the warm bloods, but they can go forward in a good carriage and also good balance to help the vaulters. So this is important that you understand that just because you see a nice big warm blood and that's what carriage should be or balance should be, it's not correct. You need to look at each horse and say, is he able to go forward in a nice balanced way that he's sort of able to then carry himself, or is he sort of going to sort of be affected by the rider too much? Now bringing that in, then our next stage is the rider. It's important that we understand that the rider affects the balance of the horse and also the way he can then carry himself. A good example is that if you watch the vaulters hop on the horse and they don't try and control the horse, they just simply sit there, feel the horse, then allow themselves then to try the movements. Now this is very important for them because if they don't stay in harmony and balance with the horse, they fall off. For example, when they're standing or doing handstands or turns, if they haven't got balance and also harmony and sort of feeling what the horse is doing to allow him to carry himself forward, then they'll fall off. Riders tend to want to control the horse too much, and they then become stiff and sort of move against the horse's movements, and this makes it much harder for the horse then to have good balance and then good carriage in respects. So it's important that when we're sort of schooling our horses that we include the rider in the equation. It's not just a matter of making the horse go around the lunge and having a nice way of going, but we also have to then add the rider in and teach the rider how to be able to sit there quietly and move with the horse. Now, some questions about sort of how to start this. It's important that when you're starting, that you teach the horse the basics. He must be able to walk, trot and canter at your command, and also come in on the circle and go out on the circle. And these are important factors. If your horse cannot do these, then you can't improve his balance or his carriage and way of going. All right, so spend the time doing the basics, and that you can start in a round yard, which is probably a good idea for less experienced riders or lungers, because this way it gives the horse a framework to be able to work, and they feel much more comfortable going around the round yard, and they're more than likely going to learn to sort of go around. But it's important that it's not just done in the round yard, that you can do it also in the arena. Now, what I often do with the younger horses is that I place rails on the ground to mark out a barrier, so a 20 arena area, and then put some witches' hats around or cones, then sort of give me indicators where I want them to think. And I simply ask them to do transitions. Walk to trot, trot to canter, come back down to trot, and then back to walk. Lots and lots of them. So that way the horse understands my cues, and I understand how much I need to do to ask the horse to go forward into trot or canter, and what cues I need to make sure I get across to him that he understands what I want. It's about communicating and understanding, and this takes time, and you need to make sure you take the time to put the basics there. Because if your horse's response to being on a lunge is simply just to run around at the trot, canter, whatever he wishes to do, and you're just a peg in the middle, then the horse is not going to be able to improve his balance or his courage and way of going. So it is important that you sort of teach them these basics first. The next thing that I would say to you is make sure that you then add the rider into the mix on the lunge. Where lunge the rider is a sort of taught to all coaches, and it's part of their requirement to become a coach, but it's not used often enough by many coaches and riders. Even the top riders need to come back and just spend some time on the lunge just to make sure they're sitting, feeling, and not doing too much. Because most of the time what we find is that the riders tend to want to control too much, and this makes them then stiff, and then against the horse, then it makes it much more difficult for the horse to go in a good balanced way, and as his balance is there, and then going forward into carriage in a good way. So spend some time as a rider just sitting on the lunge. Now, if you can't take your hands away from the saddle, or if you can't move them up to your shoulders or to out to the side or out to the front without half falling off, that tells you straight away that as a rider, you're balancing on your hands and you're not actually balancing with the horse. So this is important that you then work towards being able to become independent in your seat, and that the seat can stay with the horse and the upper body stays still. Simple exercise, you don't have to do it, just simply take the hands away, touch your shoulders, put them out to the side while someone's lunging your horse. And you'll find that this will help you greatly to improve and help the horse greatly to improve in balancing himself underneath you, sort of thing. Now, some of the things that are also important here is that we don't fix the horse into side reins first. This is the wrong way to do things. You need to allow the horse some scope. So draw reins and that are the best option here for you, because this allows the horse to have some scope of movement, so he's not fixed and then becomes stiff and locked into that position. This is not what we want, because this means the horse is not going forward in a good way. It's very difficult for him balance, because what he tends to do is brace himself against the side reins and not learn to carry himself forward in a good way. So it's important that when you're starting out that you use draw reins, and then at some stage, yes, you can add the side reins. There's a lot of talk about side reins, whether they should be short inside or longer on the outside. I tend to keep them even and let the horse move between. It's up to you what you feel. The important thing that they can't be pulled into shape. This is important, because if the horse is pulled into shape, he's not carrying himself properly and he's not balanced. He'll be sort of on the forehand, he'll be braced into the side reins. So again, we don't want to do that. Remember, the idea that there's to support the horse and help the horse, not to sort of form the shape. Again, the things that need to be worked on is making sure the horse has the basic education in respects to the lunge. So if you want to do any schooling on the lunge, you need to make sure that the horse has this for himself and for you as a lunger. Now, it's important that as a lunger, you think to yourself, I'm staying in the middle, on the pivot point. Yes, I can walk small circles to help the horse, and this is encouraged. But the important thing is that you don't end up walking around the whole arena and the horse is not sort of staying on a fixed position in respect to the circle shape. So it's, as you're lunging the horse, make sure that you sort of keep the whip. Now, vaulting has a long whip. They're almost like fly casting fishing rods. They allow us to be able to sort of reach out to the horse. It's important that your whip's used as your legs would be used. So if you're having to wave your whip around and then sort of flap it and make lots of noise. Just think, if that's your legs, that means you're kicking all the time, and that's not what we want. So it's important that the horse is not afraid of the whip, but it's important that you as a thing make sure that the whip is used to make the horse go forward and then sort of eased off. So we don't want to be sort of too strong with the whip. We want to use it enough, like we would our legs. So we want it to become a soft aid, not an aggressive aid in that respect. And that's part of the basics that you want to teach your horse. Also, the lunger's hand is also the rider's hand. So the same things, the little half holds, little checks, all help the horse to sort of understand what you want. And it's quite an effective. Think about this triangle idea, the whip towards his rump, the hand towards his ears. Make sure the horse is always going forward, and the lunger, if you have to walk on your circle, walk in a forward idea. Don't step backwards on your circle, because this means that the horse is not staying out on the circle, and it means he's not balancing himself correctly. He's falling in. So this is important that you have this idea that it's always a forward idea, same as riding in that respect, that you want this forward idea going for, and the same with the horse. Even as the lunger wants to feel that he's walking, if he's walking small circles, walking in a forward way, not having to step back and keep catching the horse in that respect. Now, the other thing that needs important, and I can't stress this much, as I mentioned before, the rider. It's important that the rider has this feeling with the horse, and this will allow the horse then to understand and better balance with the rider, and the rider to better have a better feeling with the horse. And then this will help the communication, and then also help with the horse getting better in his balance, because the rider's less interfering with him and him having to adjust all the time. Now, in saying that, the vaulters are moving around the horse in lots and lots, but if you watch what they're doing, they're always very conscious about staying in harmony or in balance with the horse, because if they don't, it's very simple, they fall off. And we don't want the riders falling off. So the less you do, the better it is. So stay still and quiet. If you think of the Spanish riding school, there are classic examples. Very still, they're very sort of quiet in what they're doing. If you have to sort of look, you don't see them sort of tossing themselves around in their upper bodies or moving their legs, swinging them side to side. It's a very quiet, passive sort of thing. They're following the horse, allowing the horse to stay balanced and to carrying himself forward. And this is what we want all of our riders and vaulters to be able to do, have this feeling of moving with the horse without interfering with what he's doing. I think it's important that you spend this time on the horse, on the lunge. It's something that is very important. And also the other thing is to make sure that you're teaching the basics to your horse. If you want to improve what he's doing on the lunge, if he doesn't understand the basics, then it's impossible to achieve this. I hope this has helped you a little bit, and if you feel you need any more questions or need any more answers, please feel free to contact myself or the EQ, and I'm sure they'll be happy to pass you on. Again, I hope this has helped, and I look forward to seeing you all, and happy lunging to you all.